Hello and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Business of Property. I'm your host, Cheryl Leong from Property Development Australia. So I begin by acknowledging traditional custodians of the land on which we meet and pay my respects to elders past and present. I extend that respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today. At the Business of Property, we interview superstar guests in the property development space that share their expertise, their deals, and stories to help empower, build, and grow our community of property developers. So, hello to Facebook land, LinkedIn, YouTube, and anyone out and about watching us today. Good evening, and please shout out if you're here with us in the comments. Well, we have, and this is a great time to be talking about heating because it's freezing in Sydney. And I'm sure everyone that's got a gas heater is going, oh my goodness, this is costing an absolute bomb. I wish I had solar power heating. And hence, that's why we've got Lily Pejkic from CEO of Sydney Solar and Batteries, who has been in the industry for over 10 years and has experience in specializing in design and installation of solar power for residential and commercial. And we want to bring Lily on today to talk around, how we can look at our developments in a more sustainable and energy efficient form, and what the solutions are. What are the things that we need to talk about? So I'm not going to steal her thunder here. I'm going to bring Lily down to the Business of Property dance floor. Lily, if you would please join me.
Hello, Cheryl, and thank you for having me.
Hello, good evening. We're all rugged up. I'm sure you probably have solar storage, don't you? That's keeping you still nice and warm now.
Yeah. So our property has a lot of solar installed, and as you can imagine, as the usage goes up, you install a little bit more. So that's where it's good to be a solar installer currently.
Awesome. And so, Lily, tell us a little bit around how you got into the space of solar, and then we can talk about why you're so passionate about it.
Yeah, sure. So I started off, I used to work for the power company. When I was working for the power company, I was studying environmental science. So the first year went past and they were like, we're recruiting, we're looking for more women to enter into the energy space as electricians, trades. And I thought, what am I going to do with the, electrical license? I've got no idea. I was studying environmental science. That was my passion. The next year, again, they're like, hey, have you considered it? Do you want to have a go? You're more than welcome to apply. And I thought, okay, well, let's go for this. Why not? So I finished my studies, environmental science at the Uni in New South Wales. I was interested in renewables. I could see the impact that that energy, fossil fuels was having on communities throughout the world and the environment. And I thought, doing the electrical apprenticeship, it was an opportunity to marry the two together. So I did my electrical apprenticeship. I studied that for 4 years. I worked for the power company for another 10 years in total. I did, environmental officer, some of their development projects, EIA, EIS. And then it got privatised. So they privatised a lot of their renewable projects. They had wind, they had solar. They did like the Newington, the Olympics. They did that solar project. So there was a lot of interesting things I learned. I did a lot of hands-on stuff, building substations. And then at the end, I thought, how do I put the two and two together? How do I use my skills and the passion for sustainability, the environment? And yeah, that's when I went on to do the solar and battery course, and I got accredited. I started doing contracting work for some of the larger retailers that don't have installers. So I used to do bulk installs for them, pretty much 7 days a week. It took up a lot of time. So I did that for 5 years, and then it got to the point where word of mouth grew, and just we had a lot of referrals. I was doing a lot of work for builders, architects, and the work started coming through. So I thought, I'll take this opportunity. Working with builders and architects, kind of like a niche market. It's quite fiddly, so a lot of contractors won't do that work. So yeah, I just learnt to design, install. Now we do the whole design, supply and install for residential and commercial properties.
Yeah, fantastic. And how different is it to do residential and commercial? Like, what are is it different, or is it exactly the same, but you've got a larger space?
It's quite different. So I'd say residential would be a lot more involved in terms of the installation side. You're kind of in and out, so you've got to be kind of organised. Each system is its own project, and each system might be different. Like, people want different things, they want different outcomes. Some people want financial return, some people want sustainability. So you've got to design things to the customer. I find in the commercial space, it's more of a ROI, so a return on investment. So they're looking for financial savings. So you're basically maximising the design that you can, and based on their energy usage. And a lot of these companies, we've done work with engineering companies. Their energy load is quite intensive during the day, so solar works really well for them. And you might, some people might structure it differently. They might finance it, or they might do a cash upfront payment. It just depends on your circumstances. You might talk to your accountant and see, what's best for you and what's best for your business. And then we design things separately. Residential is more like, your mum and dad. Sometimes it might be they want to reduce their energy bills. Some other times it's purely sustainability, environmental reasons. They want solar, they want to produce their own energy, they want a battery to store that excess solar that they're not using, and then they want to use it at night. So you find a lot of builders and that are coming on board. So a lot of work that we've done recently, builders, like, this is their first time doing solar. They're like, I just don't understand it, I don't believe in it. So there's a little bit involved in educating people, and they're like, how does it work? Then you've got to go through the different stages of the build. You're doing your rough-in, you might be doing the roof work when your scaffold's up, and then you come back and fit off the inverter and the electricals when that's done, and you come back and commission. So, and sometimes people go for batteries, other times we just provision for the battery. It all really depends on the client and what they want to achieve.
Yeah. And when you say the builders don't really believe in it, what is it that they're a bit sort of still unsure about? Is it the cost, the cost benefits or return on investment type thing? Or is that a main thing?
Yeah, it's for a lot of developers and builders, a lot of the times they're building to sell. So for them, this is another cost and another expense. So to justify a $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 system, sometimes it doesn't make financial sense to them. But a lot of the times, what they're finding now is people are asking for this. So I've had one client, one builder recently, and he's like, you know what, I might be building the same property as someone down the road, but if I have sustainability initiatives, energy savings, if I install solar and it's all provisioned and ready to go, mine might sell a little bit quicker than the one down the road, because on paper it might be the same plan, it might look the same, it might cost the same, but what's going to sell quicker? So some people approach it in that way. A lot of builders, I suppose they think it's a scam. They don't understand the financials of it. They don't understand the return. They don't understand the value, and adding that value for the potential buyer. So a lot of it, some people just choose to cut that cost out. A lot of the times too, people go over their contingency. And so the last thing to normally go on is the solar. So at least provision for things. If someone's looking, to purchase a property and they're looking for EVs or any other, kind of gadgets, battery, solar down the track, at least provision for it, because it's quite difficult. You've got a high-end architectural product. And if you haven't provisioned for something and planned for this, there's different systems as well. So depending on the system that you've gone with, if that's not provisioned, then it's quite difficult to, run the cables or the conduit internally. It's got to be surface mounted. And at that point, people are like, oh, it looks disgusting,
Yeah.
So just a little bit of forward thinking. I've had one builder recently, he's like, oh, like they're coming to the end of their budget. Can you design something to this price. And I'm like, sure, like let's design something they can expand down the track. This is bones on the system and you can build on it. So there's some systems out there that are kind of modular that you can build to. I'm like, you don't necessarily need the battery right now. Some people want to go all out, and that's all fine. Everyone's different.
Yeah, and so when you say make the provisioning for it, and how soon or how advanced in the design phase or the build phase do we have to start talking about designing for solar?
So a lot of the times architects, builders might send a plan or a concept through, and then we'll look at a time frame when are you starting to build, when's the framework going up, when's the roof going in, what type of roof. So they'll get a ballpark figure at the beginning, but like in a year or two, things might change, or the cost of materials might change, the rebate might change. So they'll start with a concept initially, and then as you sort of like at your roughing stage, that's when normally we start doing the work. When the scaffold's up, the roof's on, we'll do the paneling at that point. And then I'll be like, okay, have you considered EV charging or batteries? And they'll be like, well, yeah, our client wants a provision for a battery, but they, don't have the funds or they're not too sure at the moment. So yeah, that's great. And then we'll provision for the EV chargers and things like that.
Yeah. And so let's go to the cost of things, because that's the thing a lot of people are, that's a big consideration there, even just with residential. Mum and dad, they're looking at their electricity bills going up at the moment, and they're looking to go, oh, I've got to make an investment, maybe we should consider making an investment into solar. But they're still hesitant. I mean, are there any reasons that people shouldn't invest in solar panels or solar energy?
Yeah, definitely. So look, I went to site a few weeks ago. It was heavily shaded. It was east-facing roof. The roof space, it was so small, and I'm like, I couldn't guarantee, even with the products, like the high-end products, like your N-phase microinverters, things like that can really adapt and be installed in these shading conditions. I said, I can't guarantee. It was just so heavily shaded with gum trees, and the eastern side, their bills were through the roof. And they could only fit like 14, 15 panels. If it was completely sunny and the roof space was viable, it'd be no problem. But once it's so heavily shaded, I was like, this is your return. And for some people, it still might be viable. The return was like something at that 7 to 8 year mark. Because of the losses in the production. Normally you'll get a return in that 3 to 5 years, just depending on how much you use, how big of a system, and what products you choose, so the more premium, it just adds to the cost of your return. But yeah, with them, I was like, look, this is how it is. And they wanted a battery. I'm like, you wouldn't even have enough to supply your consumption in winter. They were focused in winter. I'm like, and this is what your options are. Perhaps look at purchasing green energy, 100% renewable energy from a green retailer, for example. Like that would be, for me, a more viable option than to sell them a system that's going to work maybe 20 to 30% of the time, So that's where, like, sometimes you'd be like, oh, I don't really think it's viable or cost effective for you, or it's efficient.
So on average, to make it, what is a typical sort of return on investment duration?
It's normally 3 to 5 years. Yeah, maybe 3 to 6 years if you're going a bit more high end, because sometimes if your bills are smaller and you've got a high end product, the returns are a little bit longer, so it might add a year or so. So instead of having a return of 4 to 5 years, it might be 5 to 6 years. Adding a battery, you can push that, depending on the size of the system, all the way up to 10 years, but your returns could be also 7 to 8 years, depending on the product. And again, it comes down to how much you're using. So the more you use and the more solar you can produce and consume, the quicker your return will be. So a lot of it is habitual. So educating people, okay, like, let's do all the washing. You can set your pool during the day. Maybe your peak solar production period is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. You can set things during that time frame. If you need to cool the house, like, you know, cool it down, use up, you can divert the excess to your hot water system. There's all these little techniques and gadgets that you can do to increase your return.
Yeah. And so talk a little bit about storage, because I'm looking at storage and the cost still seems a bit prohibitive for the everyday person. What sort of prices can you be expecting to be spending on well, we won't say panels so much because it just ranges, right? And I guess the same thing with storage as well. Maybe give us some sort of an idea as, you know, what that might be. How do you cost that out?
Yeah, so ballpark figure, there's some storage units that are quite modular. So you can, if you've got like a hybrid inverter, you can kind of design a modular system that goes with that. There's some manufacturers that produce that. You can have also an AC coupled battery like your Tesla Powerwall that can be added to any system. So ballpark figure, $1,000 per kilowatt hour of storage. So and then it goes up for a premium product like a Tesla. So you might get like a 4 kilowatt hour battery, $14,000, maybe a bit less, maybe a bit more, just depending on, you know, if it's paired with that hybrid inverter. It might be a little bit more cost effective. Tesla's, of course, a premium product and are higher than that price.
And are there like government grants for storage? I know there were some for solar panels. I'm not sure if they're still around, to be honest.
Yeah, so some states such as Victoria offer a battery rebate. So it all depends on the state that you're in. New South Wales doesn't have a battery rebate at the moment. They were doing a trial. We're hoping that they'll bring something in for the battery rebate, but we'll see. Yeah, as long as it doesn't. So the thing with a rebate, like Victoria has a lot more rebates than New South Wales has. Queensland might have some others. It's all state dependent. The thing sometimes that happens in this industry is that when there's a rebate attached to things, sales companies jump on board and they're looking, you know, like how can we make this work for us rather than the customer? Like, you know, and sometimes you've got to be careful that you're not being sold something so someone else is making like a sales margin or a profit and you're getting the wrong product. Because if you have the wrong product installed, it's kind of useless. You just you would have been better off not spending that money in the first place.
Yeah. Well, Lily, let's do a bit of a live example of what and how do you design a system and what size and so on, because I saw, you know, you've obviously got some tools to be able to help you with that. So let's see what that looks like. And
sure.
I know
Let's have a look
shot out an address before, but I'm not sure if, again, it's got enough roof coverage.
Okay, let's see if this works. So we'll bring up an address here. Can you see that development there?
Not yet. Oh, yeah, we are. Okay, here we go.
Here we go. Let's see where we are.
Which one are we looking at?
Let's see if I can get rid of some of these ones. So has that popped up in your screen there?
Yes, there we go.
You can see the pigeon pair there, the development?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So here, for example, new build duplex, for example, you know, we'd select some panels. Let's go with, and so what we'd normally design to is normally we'd ask the customer, we're like, you know, what is your energy, what's your latest electricity bill? What were you using for the quarter? You know, and say they're like, okay, my average is 30 kilowatt hours. So what we would then do is have a look at their roof profile And we try to aim and see if we can match the design to kind of produce similar to what they're using. So obviously sometimes people use a little bit more in winter, or vice versa, a little bit more in summer because they've got air conditioning like that. So here, for example, we can see we've got about 6 kilowatts on the roof. Let's see what we can do here. Let's add a couple more panels, and we'd select the panels. For example, this is I'm using REC Alpha Pure. That's a Singaporean panel, and then we'd design to suit. So we'd put it in and make sure it's all compliant. Is it all going to fit? So that's your north-facing roof profile. So that fits about 6.8 kilowatts on one of those sides. You could go, so that's north-facing. You could go a little bit west, a little bit east and south. But then, there's 3 different types of systems. So you've got your string system, you've got your optic system, and you've got your microinverter system. So then we discuss products, what is a particular product that you're looking to install or any going to check. So with this system, and let's say the bills would go in here. Let's say their bills were $700 a quarter, average, save that. Let's say they're going to get a feed-in tariff of 7 cents, and that's their electricity usage. Let's pick an inverter here. Let's go, okay, Enphase pops up. How many panels have we got here? So then this is a microinverter system. So each panel will get its own little inverter. We've got 17 panels, so we've got 17 of these. And then we'd go into, without going into the financials. So see here, it'll bring up how much the system is going to produce on average throughout the month. So obviously you can see less in winter, surplus in summer. And then we go into our proposal, 6.8 kilowatt system. That's the design here. And we'd go down, okay, we'd have a look and we'd say $700 quarter bill. So the average monthly bill before solar was say $216. Solar, it's gone down 69%, $66.77. So annual bill, say on $2,100. After you install solar, it's going to be about $800. So you're saving it close to $1,800 annually. And so then you'd be looking at, say, this system cost, we'll go back in here, say it cost, let's go 7,000, for example, 7.5, or the premium system. There we go. We go back into the proposal. Thinking a little bit. And so this will give you the ROI. So basically the cost, what you're using, what you send back. It'll give you an indication what your return on investment will. So here it'll give you the financials, your discounted payback, 3 to 4 years, total return on investment, net present value, and rate of return on cash invested. So there's a lot for people that are interested in the financials.
Yes.
There's some numbers in here. So I suppose that's where people can decide, is it viable? And then some people like, okay, well, I really like, can we get it? Sometimes they're like, okay, we can afford a premium. I'm happy to pay it off in 5 years, or some people like, I've only budgeted for that 3-year return on investment. So it's flexible. We design accordingly.
And so does this include, and I'm not techie with the terms, actually earning if you're selling back energy into with that as well? Does that take into account, do those calculations take that into account?
Correct. So with that design, I had a feed-in tariff there of 7 cents. So most retailers are paying around that low rate, 5 to 9 cents. Some pay more, some pay less, but it's better to be conservative. There's some people too, that's why some people get the batteries. They go on the virtual power plants. They do energy trading. So retailers such as Amber will do something like that. If you've got a Tesla Powerwall, you can trade at spot price. Customers send me screenshots. Look, I just earned $5, in the hour. So the whole energy trading market thing that goes on in the world out there. So some people absolutely love that. So that's another way, I suppose, that people, the pro consumers, like early adopters, they like the Tesla, that they like the trading, they like the app. So there's so many reasons why people get solar batteries. Sometimes people get batteries as well for backup grid outages. So a lot of the times we can wire in the battery and have a phase, or some have the ability to have 3-phase backup. Some suburbs have a lot of outages. So yeah, that's another reason. So it's not necessarily all financial.
Yeah. Okay. That's really good. And just really quickly, for the newbies like us, what does energy trading consist of, and how does the everyday person get involved in that?
So you can, I think it works best if you've got solar and a battery. So you can sign up to different retailers. I'm just using Amber as an example because I know a few customers that have Amber and they trade with Amber. So it just means that if you've got an ample amount of battery storage and the grid needs it, like so at the moment, if everyone's using a lot of heaters and you've got a battery, you'll be able to sell that back at a higher spot price. You might get an alert, and it also works in reverse. They're like, energy usage is really high at the moment. Try and conserve energy, or try and use your battery. So that's how it works in basic terms. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, and it's through the retailer, like energy retailer like Amber.
And then do people physically, like when you're trading, do you have to actually do the trading, or does that sort of just happen automatically where, you've got some energy, someone wants some energy, and it sort of just goes, it's a fluid and automatic thing?
Yeah, so there's different trading platforms and virtual power plants. So like Tesla have their own virtual power plant where, an X amount of time per year, a certain amount of kilowatt hours, you sign up to their virtual power plant, that trading platform, and you get compensated a certain amount of money, and they can basically take the energy stored in your battery whenever they need it. So there's all different trading platforms and all different. You've just got to be careful. Some retailers are quite ruthless in that area. It's like pretty much you've signed over your battery storage to them, and they can tap into it at any time. So if you need it, and I guess they get it first if that's in terms and conditions in your agreement. So you've just got to be really careful of the terms and conditions. So a lot of the time too, these retailers will give you a discount off the battery. So say they might give you a discount for $2,000, but then your battery storage is in their hands because they can basically access it and do this trading at any time if the grid needs it.
Yeah,
So
okay.
just a few things to be careful of.
That's something to be aware of, because I guess, like I said, you might have stored a whole lot of energy and then it might not be there
Correct.
for you to actually utilize it, which then becomes sort of counter what you're intending to do. That's good to know. And anyway, I mean, I think it is incredibly fascinating for me, and I'm sure a lot of our our audiences that's listening, because it's becoming more prevalent that people are putting solar panels into development sites. I know that we are, even if we don't have the panels, we've got provisioning for the storage as well. A lot of people are going into, say, the co-living space where they're building to rent. So definitely looking at more of the energy efficiency around there, and some storage as well. So I think this is really a really good time to be talking about it. and understanding that, all right, what are the financial, because at the end of the day we all look at what are the financial benefits as well as the sustainability and energy efficiency side of things. So Lily, are you only operating in Sydney? I guess everyone that's listening here, if it's all of New South Wales, like what's your coverage for your business?
Yeah, we're based in Sydney. We mainly service the Sydney area, down to Wollongong, Central Coast. We do a lot of our work is word of mouth. So what people might do is, like, we might do their home or business in Sydney, and they're like, "Hey, I've got a holiday home here, or I've got a family friend." So we will travel to a degree around New South Wales. Yeah, it just depends on the relationship. Yeah, a lot of it is word of mouth, and so we go do their mums, their dads, their brothers, their sisters, the next door neighbours. You know, we've been to Lake Crackenback, Dubbo. Yeah, we travel around, to do family and friends. So, but mainly Sydney.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much, Leela, because I do know as well that we've got to be mindful that because it's becoming more and more popular, there are a lot of different installation companies that are coming into this space, but they may not have the level of experience and expertise to be able to ensure that it's a system that works well for you as well.
And yeah, that and like I said, a lot of people won't work with the builders and architects because it's quite fiddly and you're under time pressures. You know, like I'll have builders call me up Friday afternoon going, "It's getting sheeted on Monday, like you got to be here at 7 a.m. So I can make it work. You know, a lot of people are like, "Don't ever call me." You know, this is ridiculous timeline and time frame. But you know, I guess I have that relationship with a lot of builders, and you know, they know me, I know them, I know how they operate, and they know what we install, how we install. And at building sites, you do often have to go back multiple times. Like you're there for the roughing, then you might be there for the roof set out, then you're putting panels on, then you're back again to hang the inverter after they've done the rendering and the painting, and then you're back again when the switchboard's in, and commissioning when the customer's got their Wi-Fi in. So it's a process with building sites. It's you know, your normal residential homes that are already built are quite easier. You know, you might be able to get that done in a day or two or three if it's a bigger system. You know, commercial might be over a few days or a week. So yeah, it's a whole process with developers and builders and architects, and there's so many products. I do a lot of like site visits. Sometimes, you know, even when I do work with a lot of architects, they're not familiar with solar, they're not familiar with batteries, not familiar with how it all works and where it all needs to be installed, or the client understands. So I'm like, okay, let's have a site meeting, let's go through all of this. What is it you want to achieve? Because sometimes things get lost in communication in email, and it's so much easier to go on site to see visually what it's like. And it's quite like a lot of builders are quite particular, you know, so you've got to deliver on your work. So you've just got to, I suppose, be careful who you engage and be clear on what you want to achieve. Yeah. So sometimes, like, people want a ROI, quick ROI, or a budget system. And sometimes I'm like, that's a great deal, like go for it. I can't even purchase at that price, you know. And I know sometimes what's involved with the work that I can't deliver on that price, you know. So
yeah, absolutely. Well, if anyone's keen to pick Lily's brain on the type of system that they would suit their residential or their new build, reach out to her at Sydney. Oh, there we go. Sorry, there's your name. Lily at sydneysolarandbatteries.com.au. Also check out their website at sydneysolarandbatteries.com.au. So if you want to incorporate sustainability and energy efficiency into your builds, definitely we all know that it's the way of the future. It's more a time rather than when. And if your property does suit having panels in place probably worth looking at now with the way that energy prices are going up as well. So thank you, Lily, for sharing and your time. And everyone, thank you so much for listening and participating. Anyone that's got any questions and are watching the replay, please put comments below. Tag Lily as well if you're part of the group, and hashtag replay also. So thanks very much, Lily. It's been great. I loved watching that little interactive placement of things. So we'll have to reach out to you when we're ready to put some panels onto our new builds as well.
Not a problem. And just one thing I wanted to add too. So I've got a rental property in Erskineville, and I put solar in there. Like I put an N-phase micro inverter system. It was only 12 panels, but you know, the place is quite efficient. I also put in a heat pump for the hot water. And when we were going through the real estate agent and renting that place out, people were actually offering us more money than we advertised for, because they love the concept of sustainability, energy efficiency. So that's something to consider too. And it could be an equipment tax for your business as well. So you've got to talk to your accountant how it's all structured and things like that. So a few considerations.
Good little throw-ins, but towards the end there. So absolutely. This is why you got to stay towards the end to get the gold bits. Awesome. Thanks so much for sharing, Lily. It's been great. You keep warm, and we will catch up with you again very soon in our next networking event as well. So take care. Thanks everyone for joining us at the Business of Property. Thank you. Make sure that you visit and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Business of Property. If you found today's episode valuable, there are plenty more of our previous episodes as well, and hit the like button and get notified when new episodes come up. So until next time, keep well, keep warm, and we'll see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.